Hello, everyone. We are some of the authors from SpookyMiddleGrade.com, and we are here to answer questions from Mr. Lopez's sixth graders in El Paso, Texas. So, hello to everyone in El Paso. Let's do some quick introductions before we dive into the questions. And if you're wondering why we all have some cool accoutrements today, that's because you may not realize it, but Mr. Lopez is a very snazzy librarian, and he always has very fancy ties. So we figured we would bring out our fancy headgear and whatnot today. So anyway, intros. My name is Kim Ventrella, and I am the author of this book, Skeleton Tree. And I don't know what happened to my Bone Hollow, but I've got one right here. And Bone Hollow. We're matching, me and my books. So there you go. David, what about you?
Yes, hello from Sleepy Hollow, New York. I'm David Neilsen. I am the author of Dr. Fell in the Playground of Doom, who has the awesome purple hat, since you might notice something I'm wearing. And also Beyond the Doors. The two are not connected, but they are both awesome. Sherry. I got Sherry, for some reason, became the big picture in mine, moving her head. So go ahead, Dr. Seuss hat.
Hello, I'm Sherry S.A. Larsen. I am the author. This is a young adult book. It's marked beauty. There's some spooky elements in it. And this one is middle grade, Motley Education. Samantha.
Hi, I'm Samantha M. Clark, and I'm the author of this book, The Boy, the Boat, and the Beast, which came out from Simon Schuster last year, and it has nothing to do with my bee antenna, I'm afraid, but no matching for me.
I thought they were your alien ears.
Well, I thought they were too, but then I looked at the label and it's actually from the Bee Movie. It's from when I was working. Yeah, it's from when I was working at a entertainment magazine, and they sent it to me when the DVD came out. It's the Bee Movie.
Okay, cool. Well, let's dive in and just to kind of recap what we're doing. So we have been Skyping with some awesome classrooms all across the country, and it's been really, really fun. But we do these 30-minute sessions. So sometimes we don't have enough time to answer all of the students' questions. So I just kind of gather those up, and then we're doing these videos to answer the leftover questions. So that's what we're doing today. And our very first question, we're going first of all to Miss S.A. Larsen / Dr. Seuss. Why do you write spooky books? Why spooky and why not other books?
Well, they're fun. I do like other books, other genres. I like reading them. But for me, anything with spooky or eerie or creepy elements holds some kind of mystery and the unknown. And I think I'm just a curious person by nature. And I also think that, so I like to just try and, like find out the mystery or find out why it's creepy or, something that's just something different about it. And I also think that the scary and the spooky and the unknown pushes me out of my comfort zone. I'm a person who likes my comfort zone, my pillows, my blanket, it's safe. But I think in a book, you can step outside in those spooky elements and it's safe. And if I get too scared, I can close the book. And I think that's why I like to write. And then it's especially when you can write them, then you can kind of control all that comfort and lack of comfort, which is really cool. I mean, I've even scared myself writing. Have you guys scared yourself writing something yet?
Yes.
I don't know. That's a good. I'm definitely gonna get on that though. That'll be my challenge for this year. Scare myself with my writing. I like it. Samantha, what about you? Why spooky books?
I love spooky books, but I actually write lots of different types of books. And this one has spooky elements in it. All of the books that I write, though, have some kind of supernatural element to it, whether it's kind of a sci-fi thing or whether it's, ghosts or somebody who's dead. Most of my books have somebody who's dead or something like that. Unfortunately, one of my mentors actually said to me one time, Sam, you've got to stop writing books with dead people. I'm like, I don't know, I like that. Never. So I really like writing lots of different types of books. But one of the things that I really love about spooky books and why that tends to creep into my story, even if the genres are other things, like a lot of my books are mashups. So even if the main book is about something else, a lot of my stories will still have spooky elements to them, because that fear, when we're reading, it can just spark, you know, all these kind of fun feelings within us, and scary feelings too. But like Sherry said, the good thing about books is you can close them and you can put them away, and then you can pick them up again when you're feeling a bit more brave. And this book is actually about being brave. So spooky works with the brave. But one of the fantastic things about writing them is drawing out that spookiness. I really love that as a writer. It's a lot of fun. Like the first time you write a scene, it's probably going to be, you know, the monster's right there. But then when you revise it, you're like, okay, I got to make this more spooky. So you're going to draw it out. And I always imagine all the spooky movies that I've seen and how they've drawn it out. So you don't just see the monster first, you know, you see, you know, like you look around the corner and you hear the footsteps, and you maybe smell something that is connected to the monster. And it's not till the very last minute that you actually see anything bad. And your imagination is what you know works the most in spooky movies as well as spooky books. So that for me as a writer is some of the most fun parts of the spooky parts of writing, because you can just draw it out, and it's so much fun to just put these little tiny bits all together and go right at the end.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, I feel like this like master plan, like I'm going to scare you now. It's fun.
It is fun. Well, you kind of mentioned movies, and that brings us right to our second question, which is, what is your favorite Halloween movie? So we're going to go back to Sherry.
This was like, on one hand, it was the easiest question. On the other hand, it was the hardest. There are so many that I love. And especially like in the 80s, they had some really, really good ones. A couple that I was just thinking about that were actually masters at mixing comedy and horror. It's like Beetlejuice. And like Hocus Pocus, you know, those are just, you know, on one hand you're scared, on the other hand you can't stop laughing. You know, these witches are just crazy, and you know, and Beetlejuice, well, he's just a riot. I mean, he's just this dead, rotting corpse dude, you know. And then of course, I am a gigantic fan of the Nightmare Before Christmas. I mean, come on, I can't help that. You know, that's just my thing. And then I had, for my favorite, I was like stuck. Like one is definitely Carrie. That was like one of the first horror movies, the original Carrie, that I don't know if it was like in 78 or something. That's not when I saw it, but that was really scary. And it's like it's set in a school. It's like it could have happened to me. So, but for me, my ultimate, it's a cult classic, my favorite one of all times. And it's something that I've watched since I was, I don't know, probably in junior high, all the way. Like every year, it's like a thing my daughter and I do. We watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That is my ultimate favorite. And we watch it every year with like popcorn and ice cream.
I used to watch it, like, I don't know, when I was a kid, like, I don't know why I was watching that. I was watching this all the time. This is not for you kids out there, though.
No.
Not really.
Movie. No.
But when you're older, you got to watch it and then sing. Do you sing, Sherry?
Oh,
yes.
Not very well, but I do try.
I go see it live, like every year in different iterations. They do like a full-on musical version here every other year. It's so good. But yes, we're corrupting the youth today. But no.
Yeah, and actually, another caution should probably be Carrie. If anybody ever wants to watch that movie, they probably want to like ask mom and dad first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beetlejuice and Hocus Pocus, they're not too bad. But.
I know. I used to love Beetlejuice. I totally forgot about that one. And you made me think about this other one that I really like. So Roald Dahl has his book, The Witches, which is amazing.
Oh, yes.
And the movie's actually really, really great. Angelica Houston, this great actress, is the main witch, and she's like super evil. And it's just about this boy who ends up, he ends up at this hotel that's filled with like hundreds of witches, like every witch in England, and they all are like after him. It's really, really great. So that is a great one. And the other, one of my favorite horror movies of all time is this. It's from like 2008, the Swedish vampire movie, Let the Right One In. It's really, really good. And the two main characters are kids. Yeah, it's great. And one of them is a vampire. One of them is just a regular boy who's getting bullied all the time. And it's kind of about their relationship. But definitely, like, content warning, there's a lot of violence in that movie, but it's a really kind of heartwarming tale, and it kind of flips around.
A heartwarming vampire death tale.
A heartwarming vampire murder tale, yes.
I know I'm not. I just want to throw in. You mentioned Nightmare Before Christmas, which is a classic, and that's one for the kids. Another one that I absolutely adore and love, because you mentioned Angelica Houston, is the original Addams Family movie with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston. Angelica Houston was born to be Morticia.
Absolutely.
First of all.
So
the sequel, I don't care about the sequel. But the first one was fantastic, and kids, you can watch that. It's great.
I was obsessed with that movie. It was so, so good. And of course, I don't know how I forgot to mention It, because I love the original It. I love the new It. And I have like a replica new It costume, which I can't really see.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah. And that is what I wore when I was my evil clown character in the haunted house this October.
Super creepy.
So throwing in It. But okay, so many. We could go off on the movies.
Yeah, moving on.
Okay, but moving on to another book-related question, and this one is about Lemony Snicket. This is for Mr. David Neilsen. What do you think of Lemony Snicket?
I love Lemony Snicket. I read all of them to both of my kids, first one and the other. I think some of my books have been compared to the Lemony Snicket in terms of style, in terms of having the kids. The kids are the ones who are the only ones who are sane in the entire series. Everyone else is insane in one way or another. They're crazy. They're doing this, whatever. The only ones that make sense are the kids, and that's really a special, I think, an important point that I think really works well in middle grade. And for us, is I enjoy having the kids have to make the decisions. The kids have to solve the problems. Well, I might say you can skip the Jim Carrey movie. If you have Netflix, you must watch the Neil Patrick Harris series, which is just finished just now, just January, the last episodes. They do every book. It is brilliant. Neil Patrick Harris is fantastic as Count Olaf, and the whole family, we all watch it with the kids together, love it. So I love Lemony Snicket. And I hope to someday have something as amazing as that in my own portfolio.
Excellent. I like that we're bringing it back around to all of the youth appropriate shows.
Right.
Okay, we've reeled ourselves in. Now we're going back into the writing questions now. So what inspired you to start writing, Sam?
I have always wanted to tell stories, but it wasn't really about writing so much that I inspired me. It was telling stories. That's really what we are. I always say to people, when you're a writer, we always talk about being a writer, but really, if you're writing novels, everyone's a writer to an extent. If you're writing a letter, you're a writer to an extent. But if you're writing books, if you're writing movies, if you're writing plays, you are a storyteller first, primarily. And for me, stories were I just always got sucked into stories. I'm an only child, and I lived in countries all over the world. We moved, when I was 1, we moved completely to a different town. When I was 5, we moved to a different country. When I was 10, we moved to another different country. When I was 12, and so we were constantly moving around, and I was always the new kid. And because of that, the one thing, I didn't make friends easily, and the one thing that I always had was stories. I could always go to a library and I could find the same stories in every single country, even though we couldn't afford a lot of books, especially since we moved around a lot, and they're expensive to move, heavy to move. So I had a few that were mine, but the majority of my books came from the library. But I could go to the library and I could see the same stories that I had always had. So when I was little, I used to write puppet plays that, you know, and put them on with my puppets. And I tried to do it with my cousins, but they weren't very good to direct. They would never do it right. At least that's what my mom tells me. So I used to do it with puppets, which was a lot of fun. And then as I got older, I would write, you know, my own short stories. And then in school, I always gravitated toward writing. But I actually never thought that I could be an author. That would, to me, was something that was completely not on the table. You know, I always thought that the names on the books, I was like, you know, that to me, that had to be, you know, I never really put two and two together that was an actual person somewhere. You know, I thought that if it was an actual real person, then they must be in like a big city somewhere. You're not living in a small little country or island in the Caribbean. That's not me. And it wasn't until I was older, actually in college, that I spoke. One of my teacher he was teaching journalism, but he also had written a sci-fi book, and he had the same agent as Orson Scott Card. So I had to do an interview with somebody for a paper, and so he got me the chance to interview Orson Scott Card for my college paper. And it wasn't until then that I really was like, wow, these are real people. And if they're real people, then maybe I could do this too. I still didn't do it for many, many, many years. I had a whole career before I, you know, started but I was always writing throughout my career. I was always writing stories, but I didn't get published until much, much later on. But that's when it really, you know, started for me. So stories was really what first inspired me. I've always wanted to tell stories, and now other people get to read them, which is fun.
It's so true. Love it. Well, David, what about you?
A lot of the same things, although I didn't move around nearly as much. But storytelling, I would always call myself a storyteller even before anything else. And people would say, no, you're not. You mean acting or whatever. Of course, irony is now I'm a professional storyteller. But yeah, I would always want to bring out the stories. That was what interested me. Even in the movies, like the horror, we talk about the spooky movies. And like I didn't, as a kid or even in high school, I didn't go see the horror movies that in my generation, you know, it was the big slasher flick of the 80s. You had Jason, you had Michael, you had Freddy Krueger, you had Pinhead, you know, you had all these movies. And I didn't see any of them, but I made my friends see them and then tell me the story. I didn't need to see Freddy Krueger kill somebody, but I wanted to hear what created Freddy Krueger, where he came from. That was the story part. I didn't need to see him do his bit. I just want to know the interesting thing about him. So that's kind of where I crafted my desire to just write stories. And then, like Samantha said, I didn't really think myself as, I can't be a writer. I'm not a writer. I'm a kid, or I'm doing this. You know, I had a whole career as well before seeing the light. And now that really anyone you've got it, you can do this, and it's just a joy to, as you said, you can share your stories with people. When I hear that someone has read one of my books and they really like it, and like it makes my day. You know, they enjoyed my story. That's all I can do. I can't ask for anything more. So.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to break into song right now. In my head, that's how this played out. You just broke into song at that moment. Okay, moving on. How do you get your ideas for your books, Sherry?
Oh, this is like a good question. It's I think you could go on forever about this. I think probably most writers have a little bit of a dreamer in them. And I know I do. I used to daydream a lot when I was a kid. I mean, we've all had things happen in our life and in our childhood, but you know, if you want to be real, I had a mother who was really very sick, and there was some mental illness. And so I used to ideas and stories, ones I either got from school library or from that I had to read in class or the public library. They were always an escape for me. And I think through that, I've always had a tendency to try and make up my own parts of other people's stories, things that I thought, not necessarily that they did something wrong or bad, but just I would have done it a different way. So I used to dream a lot like that. And it's funny that Samantha mentions the puppet show, because I was also in the theater when I was young. I don't think I ever mentioned that before, but because I danced, and there was an attempt to sing. It was very poorly done, but I used to come up with my own little things. Like if I'd see a movie, then I had a couple, I actually had cousins who were pretty good at it. So we all used to act it out and, that kind of thing, and change dynamics of characters or whatever, the ending or what have you. Things that I like to do now is like, I like to observe. Everywhere I go, I like to observe just people. And if I may see somebody that they look like everybody else, but I'll try and find something that's not ordinary about them, or that's different. They may be, I used this example before, they may be wearing a scarf that happens to have penguins with a top hat on. And then I wonder, why did they pick that scarf? And then I'll just keep thinking about things like that. I also get ideas I read a ton, and I read from all kinds of different genres, and not just books, not just fiction, nonfiction. I find science. Like right now, I'm really into the creepy animals thing. Like I finished the second book in Motley, and I have what I call zombie crows in them. And I actually found out there's actually zombie insects. They're like real things. They're like dead. Isn't that cool? That's so cool, but it's yucky, but it's cool. So yeah, stuff like that. I get, doing research like that. That's where I get some ideas. And another thing I do a lot of times, like if I'm really having a hard time, is I do a lot of mind mapping. And some of the kids don't know what that is. You just take one idea or one character. Let's say Henry's afraid of the dark. You put it in the circle, and then you just keep drawing branches out, and you just keep getting ideas. It's free thinking. And actually, I actually have a handout that I give kids. If anybody wants to, if anybody would like it, they can just email Spooky, and I'll send them one.
Nice. Love it. Let's see. Who else are we going to pick on? Samantha, where do you get your ideas?
Like Sherry, I get my ideas from everywhere. For this book, I get a lot of ideas when I'm walking my dog. And this book, I got the idea while I was walking my dog. We were walking past a lake in Houston, Texas, when we used to live there. And I just thought, and there were all these houses behind me, and we were by the lake. And I thought, what if these houses weren't here, and some kid just, woke up on this next to this lake, and they didn't know who they were or how they got there. And that's basically the premise of this book. And that's how it started. And from there, it spun off, because like Sherry said, ideas come from questions. So then I would ask lots of questions about, well, what happened to this boy? How did he get there? What would if I was this kid, what would I feel if I just woke up on this beach? And what else could be on this beach? Where could he go? And then I have another book that hasn't been published yet, but I'm hoping one day maybe it will be. I need to revise it, but I really love it. And it's about garden gnomes. And I got that idea while I was gardening one day. And I was like, ooh, I like this idea. This is fun. There was an idea for a young adult, which is going to go out on submission soon. I got that idea while I was vacuuming. And it has nothing to do with vacuuming, strangely enough. But when you're doing these kind of things, when you're walking, you're vacuuming, you're walking your dog, you're gardening, it's things that you can kind of do automatically, and your brain can just sit and play. And I do that. When I'm driving, if I'm working on a novel while I'm driving, I put the characters in my head and I let them play around and come up with ideas. And sometimes I come up with really great ideas that I then forget, which isn't the best thing. But yeah, I get a lot of ideas in that. And then with research as well, I subscribe to, there's two main e-newsletters that I really love, that I read a lot. One of them is the National Geographic, just the free National Geographic email. I occasionally get stories about, animals eating other animals, which I know happens, but those I have to delete, because I know it happens, but I don't want to see it. It makes me sad. So I have to delete those. But they send out all of these other amazing videos and articles about like the zombie ants. That was a fungus. It's a fungus that infests these ants, and it's disgusting and gross, but it makes these ants into zombies, and they continue to move and do stuff, all controlled by this fungus. Imagine, you can get all of these amazing ideas from that. So I subscribe to that one. And there's also one from the BBC, it's called something like 6 articles you should read this week. And it's not regular, news that everyone's reporting on. It's things that most people aren't reporting on. like a town in the US where it now has a population of 1. And they had this fantastic article about it, and it even has a library in this population of 1. And it was really interesting. And then, funny enough, I saw right after I watched this video that BBC had made, I saw her on a Geico commercial. Like, she must have seen the same video. But those things, doing research and just discovering other things about our own world, from those we can get other ideas. Like Sherry was saying, ask questions about it. If they're really, imagine there's this town of 1 person. Well, what else could be there? Maybe, why is it only 1 person? Maybe there are monsters in that town and nobody else wants to come. Maybe it's a population of 1 human, but that human is really guarding all of these other monsters. Okay, so there we go. I have an idea for a story right there. I have to go and write it down.
Love it. Okay, well, very nice. Our last question was actually a write-in from tons of students. So many students wanted to know the answer to this last question. And here it is. Why is their librarian, Mr. Lopez, so awesome? Well, I know for me, it's got to be the ties. We've Skyped with his students a few times now. And what did we have? The Simpsons, Dr. Seuss, my favorite SpongeBob. Yeah, we had some pretty awesome ties. Does anyone else want to just add their answer in?
All I can say is science does not have an answer for that question yet. There's in the midst of studying. They'll get back to us later.
Good answer.
I would say because he's a librarian. I think all librarians are awesome people. They really are. I've met a lot of them, and they're just fantastic. And he gets his students so energized and excited, and he's energized and excited. And he's sharing reading with these kids, just like other librarians do. That's awesomeness right there.
That's what I would just include his enthusiasm. That's awesome. I don't recall ever having a librarian like that when I was either elementary, junior high, or high school. And I just love these librarians that I meet now through this Skype that we're doing, because they're just so passionate, and it's so cool, because reading can take these kids anywhere. It can take all of us anywhere,
Yep, super, super cool. So shout out to all the librarians and educators out there, especially the ones with awesome ties. Well, we had a great time answering all of the questions from the 6th graders in El Paso. And if you are a teacher, a librarian, an educator out there, and you would like to Skype with some of the spooky authors, then let us know. Head over to spookymiddlegrade.com, and there's a form that you can fill out to set up your free Skype or Google Hangout. And we love to hang out with you. See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.